Rockabye, baby, on that corporate tree. When the wind blows hard, we call it productivity. When the branch bends low, that's growth opportunity. And when the cradle falls, well, that's just called learning. They taught us that pretty young. They just didn't call it that yet. A rockabye to reality. As Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, not really a wall, more like a platform, but built his brand on balance and bravado. Followers clapping as he polished his shell. And gravity remembered him too well. All the king's horses and all the king's men argued on Twitter about whose fault it had been. Nobody asked Humpty how high the wall was, or who told him it was safe to sit there in the first place. The lesson learned around 5, don't fall. Lesson learned around 45, falling isn't the failure. Pretending you didn't crack is. So Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of meaning. Jack fell down, blamed Jill. Jill sued Jack for emotional damages, and the hill got rezoned into a wellness retreat for people who refused to look down. As kids, we thought the hill was the problem. As adults, we realized nobody even asked them why they weren't paying attention to where they were going when they're climbing the hill with a bucket and no map. Bah, bah, black sheep. Have you any wool? Yes, sir, but it's taxed, tracked, tagged, and redistributed by rule. One for the landlord, one for the loan, one for the version of yourself you've never known. It's funny how early we learned to count what we give away before we learned to ask what we're allowed to keep. Mary had that little lamb, followed her everywhere. Turns out it wasn't cute, it was trauma, unprocessed, uninvited, bleeding in the background of every decision she tried to make. They told us monsters lived under the bed. Later we found out they live in memory and wake up when the lights go out. Ring around the rosy with a pocket full of posies, ashes, burn out for everyone. We all fall down, but we fall together, so we call that normal. A childhood rhyme becomes an adult anthem. And the riddle they never fully explained is how 6 blind people can touch the same elephant and swear it's 6 different animals. As one grabs the trunk and says snake, another hugs the leg and exclaims must be a tree. One feels for the tail and swears an elephant is just like rope. And every one of them is convinced the others must be lying or manipulating. Welcome to adulthood, where partial information becomes absolute truth and empathy gets canceled for not matching the correct angle. Little Miss Muffet sat on that tuffet, eating her curds and coping mechanisms. Along came a spider, or debt, or grief, or the news, and sat down beside her, because fear loves company, and company rarely asks permission. As kids, we screamed at that spider. As adults, we invite it in, give it a name, and let it narrate our inner monologue. We were told, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That rhyme aged poorly. Words build prisons. Words start wars. Words end marriages. Words convince people they're only worth what they earn, that silence equals peace, that shouting equals truth. Funny how a playground lie can become a political strategy. London Bridge is falling down. Has been for centuries. We keep rebuilding it with the same blueprints and act shocked when gravity keeps winning. As kids, we sang it, smiling. As adults, we stand underneath it, arguing about whose fault the cracks are while holding the little pieces over our heads. Here's the quiet joke underneath all of that. They were never teaching us answers. They were teaching us patterns. Fall, break, share, blame, repeat. The rhymes didn't change. We did. What once sounded simple now sounds sinister. What once felt playful now feels prophetic. So maybe growing up isn't about learning new lessons. Maybe it's realizing we misunderstood the old ones. That elephant was always bigger than our grip or understanding ever could be. The wall was always way too high to sit on. The cradle was never secure. We were warned in rhythm, in riddle, and in rhyme. We just didn't know how to listen yet. So maybe the moral, the real one, isn't be careful, or behave, or don't fall. Maybe it's this. Don't confuse your piece for the whole. Don't mistake the rhyme for the reason. Don't let the song stop you from hearing the silence between the verses. Because nursery rhymes weren't about childhood. They were about us practicing for a world that would later ask us to grow up without losing the ability to wonder, why are we all singing the same songs and never listening to each other's silence between the verse? It's a rockabye reality.